All right, welcome to the Headspace podcast. I think we're on, what is it, episode 5, maybe 6?
Couldn't have been two.
Here in the Lemp Brewery in Headspace Studios. We've got Larry on board with us today. Larry Bomarito.
Thanks for finally having me. Sorry I bailed on the last time.
Thanks for
Whoops.
leaving us up a creek.
Okay.
Jerk.
It's not like that. I forgot what happened.
I don't know.
I think I either got sick or something came up.
I think you did get sick.
I think I was sick.
Yeah.
Because it was around 4:20. Or was it before that?
Oh man, I can't remember.
I don't remember what I didn't
asking-
remember what
you're
podcast I was on
asking
last time.
Yeah, I mean, you had mentioned when we were setting up that you try to abstain from podcasts, but
I just don't get asked to do them a lot.
okay,
I just not that like I wouldn't do them. It's just I don't get asked to do them.
okay,
And I just feel like I'm not a very interesting person to like talk about myself.
really,
So I just like, I know you guys.
yeah,
So I'm just like, yeah, of course.
yeah,
But if like some random person's like, hey man, I got this podcast, I'd probably be like, can I see the questions first?
really, okay.
That's why I asked. I was like, do you have questions? I didn't know.
I've got a few, and what was interesting is on my drive here, I was rolling some questions around in my mind because we've obviously known each other for a little bit now,
Right.
and I'm like, I don't want to like rinse and repeat any sort of stuff that we kind
So
of
how'd you start?
yeah, tell me about Sekondtry. But it's also like for the viewers and kind of the audience that we're building. I
Right.
do want to touch on a little bit of that, but I also want to
Lead the way, sir.
make it fun for you to kind of delve
This
into
is
whatever
fun.
sort of-
I mean, it's not like I'm working. I mean, I don't really have like, I have fun.
yeah.
There's no alcohol here, so.
Yeah, I'm sorry, man. Next time we'll have some
No, I'm
whiskey.
kidding. I don't drink that much anyway. It was just to be loose.
Yeah. So yeah, we've known you for a little bit.
Yeah,
Tell me
almost
about
2
like,
years now.
your brand is Sekondtry. Tell me about like how Sekondtry was established. Tell me about the story behind the name.
So, second try literally comes from like the term of giving myself a second try at like doing something. I was working for the Cardinals. I was working for the St. Louis Cardinals. I was a media relations supervisor, and I was with them from 2013 to 2017. And I had randomly picked up photography in between that time, probably like around closer to 2016, 2017, whenever I was kind of ending my career with the Cardinals. Started with a GoPro, had an Instagram, and realized I had an eye for it. Was getting a lot of good feedback from people on the internet, unfortunately. Like, I listened to people on the internet, and I stuck with it, and it's kind of like blossomed into what it is now, and now I do it for a living. So it's just kind of like it's a very dumbed down version, but yeah, it's just, I didn't realize I had an eye for it.
Yeah.
And found out I did and stuck with it. So
It's interesting. The common thread of like every single person that we've had on this this podcast
probably
is
the
that
same
they've
thing.
stumbled into photography.
yeah,
Like every single time.
I always had like an iPhone, and like my parents, I grew up in a family where we didn't really have a lot of photos. Like I don't really have like a lot of like baby photos of myself or like childhood photos. My parents had a Polaroid at one time, and I actually have a photo of my very first drum set on a Polaroid in my kitchen
Nice.
that I ever got when I was 13. And
Is it like a mini kit?
No, it was a full-blown kit. Like,
Oh, damn,
my
okay.
parents bought me a Pacific kit from a Guitar Center. It had like really, really crappy cymbals that I broke like 2 weeks later,
Nice.
just because I
We're just smacking too hard.
I beat drums way, way, way too hard. Like I have serious anger problems, but I don't.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I have that Polaroid, and it has like the date, like 12/25/03 on it, and that's like the one Polaroid I probably like have from my childhood that like really mattered to me. But I don't have like hardly any like baby photos. We just didn't have cameras growing up,
Yeah.
and like nobody in my family was like creative. So I don't know where the hell it came from, but maybe
Was
just
it based
influence.
just like out of necessity then?
Me being a photographer?
Yeah.
Or,
Because like mentioning that you didn't really kind of grow up in a visually creative family.
yeah, I think it was something that I mean, I'd had an Instagram already, and like I was taking photos on my phone of like clouds and like food, like food porn and cloud porn, like when that was a thing on Instagram.
It's
And
the
like,
best kind.
I was into shoes still back then. And I was like taking photos of like, I was kind of showing like behind the scenes stuff of what I was doing at Busch Stadium, but I didn't like think I was getting like 12 or 13 likes per photo. Like
Right.
I had like no followers. I had like no type of idea of what I was doing. It was just like, well, I like documenting this and I like showcasing it. If anything, it'll be a visual diary for me to look back on.
Mm-hmm.
And I was an idiot and deleted all those photos. So now I don't even have them. So, I mean, now I have what I have. So it kind of worked out and it kind of didn't. But I enjoy what I shoot now. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's much different than clouds and food.
Do you think that your kind of desire to capture spawned from not having a whole lot of pictures from your childhood
I think what
to document your life?
I think what I capture now just comes from what I was doing as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Like I was a terrible student. I was a terrible, just like I was a menace as a child. I hung around two brothers that were just always in trouble. My parents hated it, but they also loved it because they knew where I was at least.
Mm.
And we would like skip school all the time. We'd like play in these woods. I would like skip school in abandoned houses like when I was like 12.
Oh, no way, really?
So like, and we had a place, I grew up in North County, so we had a place called Cement Land
Okay.
that was like not too far from our high school. And I got arrested in Cement Land when I was like 16, like way before I ever even had a camera for like exploring. So I was already doing it. I just didn't have a camera. So the blend between what I was doing as a child and what I wanted to do with a camera meshed so well that I was just like, well, this makes perfect sense. Like, why would I not document what I was doing?
Right, right.
And
Was a lot of that because driven like by your brothers? Are you oldest or?
I'm
or
the
you said-
youngest of three. So I have a
Okay.
half sister who's older. She lives in Louisiana. And then I have an older brother who's 5 years older than me. And he just plays video games and he's a dad and he's married and he's happy and
Nice.
he's chill, but like he's not like creative at all.
Huh.
And like my buddies that I grew up with, Sean and Brian, like they're not creative at all. So it was just like one of those things. I don't know. I think from maybe me playing music before, because like I played drums from like when I was 12 to really, I mean, I still play drums now. If I had one, I'd play drums. I'm still decently good. But yeah, I think that's like where the creativeness kind of came from. And like also skateboarding as a young child, like
Yeah.
looking at something and being like, it may be a curb, but it's actually not a curb. It's like 4 hours of fun.
Right, right.
Like this is going to keep me busy. Like this little curb is going to keep me busy, or like this skate park, or this rail, or like this hip over here, like in this parking lot. I like looked at the world very, very differently as like a young child from like a skater's perspective. And I think that's kind of what led to me. It was all these like weird things like meshing together subconsciously that I didn't piece together until I had a camera. I was like, oh, like, yeah, that's a cool setting. But like if I look this way or look up, then it looks different.
Right.
The same thing, but it looks different. So I think that's kind of like where it all came from. Subconsciously, yeah, it's weird.
Yeah. When you're in the moment, you don't realize it until you like
It's completely
you have
impulse.
it looking back and you're like, oh, that's
Complete impulse. Like
Yeah.
I don't like people. I'm the worst. Like when it comes to like photo shoots, because people are like, "Oh man, what's your vision?" I'm like, "We'll figure it out when we
Yeah,
get there." Like I'll see it, but like I'm not good at planning. But I always love to stay busy.
yeah.
I'm weird.
Huh.
It's tough.
So like my background is a little similar because I'm the youngest of three brothers.
Okay,
And, like,
yeah.
We were always exploring. Mostly my oldest was exploring, and it would always piss me off because like he's like the nth degree of explorer, and he would always get us all lost. Like us and our friend group, we would always get lost, and somehow like we would always find our way back. But like we would just be out for hours, just like making forts out of nothing, and
Yeah,
like getting lost in the woods. And
We did the same thing, but
Yeah.
we just did it a little differently because like on rainy days we'd make like mud balls
yeah,
and like chuck them at UPS trucks when they drove by the street. Like terrible things. We did
Yeah.
like we put sticks in the road.
Yeah,
Like we were
yeah.
like the true menace kids, like fireworks in mailboxes. I was doing terrible things as a child.
Huh.
So it's like probably a little different, but I never had a juvie record.
Yeah,
So it's
that's-
like not the worst.
that's good.
I don't have a record as of now either. So
Yeah.
people ask me all the time, like, man, don't you like get caught or like get arrested and stuff? I'm like, I
No,
don't know.
man, I've ridden with you. Like you're
I don't know.
smooth. You're smooth.
Here, this is a good topic to talk about.
Okay.
Describe how it is driving with me.
Oh, bro, it's exhilarating, honestly. And
Exhilarating.
one of the things I wanted to touch on was
That's a good way
of
to
the
put it.
ride-alongs. No,
Exhilarating.
yeah, I'm trying to remember the first ride-along that I did with you.
With the fire department or for the fire department stuff. Or
Well, I think the most recent one was the most exhilarating, where you were like, because you were in my truck and you were just like, just go.
oh yeah. Yeah, that was,
You're like, don't worry about it. I got to pass. You know?
yeah, kind of.
Yeah.
It is weird to be like, oh, like having. It's a very weird thing to be like, hey, we know you're doing illegal things, but like,
Yeah.
you're doing good.
Keep it up.
You're doing good things, but
Yeah.
they're illegal.
Yeah.
But you're doing good things. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, because that kind of lends itself to my next question, which is your style of photography. I don't think you, at least based off of our conversations, you don't like to be pigeonholed as just like a street photographer, right?
No, I would just like to say I'm a person who wants to document life, and I'm documenting daily things that I see the way that I see them.
Yeah.
So I wouldn't say like I'm a portrait photographer
Right.
or I'm an architecture photographer or this or that. I would just say that quite simply, I'm a dude with a camera that takes photos of things that I see on a day-to-day basis
I think
of whatever it might be.
a couple of the things that come to mind when I look at your stuff, which is very distinct, is just like raw beauty. Like whether it's portraiture or models or street or fires or music.
Yeah.
It's like that's always like the thing that comes to mind. It's like it's in the moment. It's very like well done. It's like an art piece, but it's captured. It has a sense of rawness to it. And I
Yeah.
think that to me is like that's what I like about your art, your stuff so much is that
Well, thank
like
you.
it's very distinct.
Yeah, I don't really like to polish things. If something's dirty, it needs to be dirty.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
if I want it to be clean, I'll make it look clean from
Yeah.
the start. I
Yeah.
won't edit it to look clean.
Yeah.
Like I think that's why I like studio work. Like I like taking portraits of people in a bright white room because it looks nice. But then I also enjoy taking photos of fires at night because it looks bad.
Right.
So it's like when I want to take photos of nice things, I'll go take photos of nice things. I won't make dirty things look nice.
Yeah.
I just kind of adjust. I don't really like to edit that much. Like if I showed you a raw photo and like a before and after, you'd be like, okay, it looks about the same.
Yeah.
I just try to get it.
Yeah, add some saturation.
Yeah, I want to be the guy to get it right in camera.
You just throw on that sepia filter and let it go.
Oh yeah. Or that what is it? What's the old Instagram filter that everybody used?
Paris or something.
Lurk or something like that, or Lark or God, yeah, cloud porn. Cloud porn, man, that was the thing. I'm bringing it back actually. I'm gonna bring it back.
Nice. Yeah.
Just gonna literally take an iPhone photo a day and just straight to the gram.
That's awesome.
That's how I'm gonna make reels.
They're gonna pop off too. Just you wait.
Don't take this idea. Don't take this idea.
Don't you dare. You heard it here first.
Copyright.
How did you kind of touching back to the city authorities, whatever you call it? I
Right.
feel like there's a general perception that you almost have this kind of unspoken permission to kind of like capture the city in its own rawness. How did you connect it, or how did you get connected with St. Louis Fire Department? How did you get connected with essentially getting behind the scenes of a lot of what St. Louis has to offer?
It was kind of a weird, like, perfect storm. So one of my good childhood friends, Ryan Cooper, like we had known each other since like 7th grade. He'd actually taken photos with me, like with an iPhone, and whenever I had a GoPro, like we went out exploring and stuff. And then we met. I met a mutual friend of his named Jake Hager, and they had went off, did their own things, but I kept in contact with him, obviously. And Ryan got hired onto the fire department. Jake also got hired onto the fire department. I did not choose to get hired onto the fire department. I just like wasn't into it at the time because it's like a weird loophole of like it takes you like 5-7 years to like get on the department sometimes, like when you test and all that stuff. And I was off doing my own thing, and it was just different. I got good at photography, and my buddy Ryan was at a firehouse in North City, And I would just go by and like say what's up to him, like whenever I was out shooting. Well, long story short, he had told me about a photography position that they had already had on the department. A guy named Bill was already doing it. And I was like, oh, like that would be cool. So Jake and Ryan kind of put in a good word for me with a gentleman by the name of Garen Mosby. And I had done my own research of following the Twitter for the fire department. And they started posting, like I would follow the Twitter and I'd be out shooting and they would take house fires and like they put like 5900 block of Pennsylvania, right? And sure enough, I would get the notification, I'd show up and there'd be a fire. So like before I had what I have now with the department, that's kind of how I was getting into it, from Ryan and Jake's knowledge and like kind of like lending me a helping hand and be like, hey man, like this is a thing. Come by the firehouse. You know, like we'll put in a good word for you. Let's see where it goes. And then I had met Garen finally at a house fire. Forgot, like it was like May. It's like around this time, like 2 or 3 years ago. I think I've been with the department now since May 2021. So almost 3 years. And it was funny because like he just randomly looked at me because I would just wear like my normal clothes and I'd just show up like I wasn't with no news station or nothing like that. He came up to me one day and said, hey man, who are you? And I was like, my name is Larry. I'm just a photographer. And he's like, I see you at a couple of these fires. Like, and my first reaction is like, how do you know these fires are happening? And I was like, well, you post them on Twitter. And he's like, oh, I do. You're right. Okay, well.
You want a scanner?
All right. Yeah, kind of. It was like, all right, well, like, hey, like, here's my card. Like, give me a shout. Like, let's see. Like, let me see your work. Like, let me see what you're doing. And literally, like, a few days later, I sent him some stuff, and he was like, hey, man, yeah, we'd like to bring you onto the fire department as our photographer. So, like, they gave me, like, full gear, radio, app, everything. And it's been a great relationship ever since. Like, it's opened up a lot of doors. It's been really, really cool. I've seen some wild things. I've seen some very, very sad things. But it's a part of the process to document what I want to document. If I could be a war zone photographer, that's what I would actually want to be.
Really?
Like, I would love to go to, like, where it is just, like, the shit is happening.
No way. You've never talked about that before.
Yeah, I would love to be a war zone photographer. Like, that's always been, like, a very, very wild dream of mine. Just to be, like, to go overseas, like, to the Middle East and, like, put on a helmet and a media vest and just, like, go run towards the shit.
Jeez.
But I am getting older now, and I don't know if that's going to happen. But I could speak it into existence. Maybe one day my dream will come true. But I'll stick to St. Louis for a little bit longer.
Do you find yourself being drawn to, like, a little chaos?
Yeah, I think that's why I like living downtown.
Yeah.
I mean, I've lived downtown now for 5 years, and all my friends are like, man, it's like so loud here. Like, how do you do it? And I'm like,
It's like white noise for me.
I hear gunshots and loud scat packs, and I just like nestle myself into sleep. It's like white noise. It's like a fan app.
Yeah, that's funny.
And I'm just like, well, at least I know there's people out there.
Right.
I can't do the country. Too quiet.
Yeah, it's
like,
almost like a deafening silence.
It's a deafening sound. Like, I cannot do it.
Your ears start picking. It's almost like a dog whistle. Like,
my tendonitis
are so quiet.
My tendonitis actually like pops up and it's like,
really?
And I'm like, oh, I don't like hearing that. I need noise.
Give me some gunshots. I need to go to bed.
Yeah, it's been quiet in the city though. Knock on wood.
Yeah,
it's been good. So I haven't had any issues.
So the first couple of ride-alongs, I think we tried accessing locations. I think we got to one location, which was pretty cool.
Oh yeah. When we were like filming stuff.
Yeah. The second one that really stood out to me was the second ride-along to the fire department during the sub-zero temperatures.
Oh yeah. When
really
like
cool.
the lines were freezing, like where there was like stuff literally. Who else was with us? Oh yeah, it was Fregosa. Fregosa, who is off camera.
He's off camera, leg on the floor.
He's laying on the floor in a yoga pose, very zen-like.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Fregosa.
He's a king of power naps.
Yeah.
I can attest to this. Yeah.
Oh yeah. So that day was crazy because I didn't think it was going to be that big, and then I like had a gut intuition. I was like, oh, like we should probably go, and like it was like go. It was like 0 to 100.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, like I think I was going like 80 down.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. I wasn't going. I was going like I was going the speed limit.
We made it in time.
I was going the speed limit. Sorry, I'm like
Yeah.
incriminating myself so much. I'm like, oh yeah, I break into buildings and I
Yeah.
do illegal things, and oh well, who cares?
And
People
even
know.
then, I know that part of what you were talking about, because the setting in and of itself was just very, very unique, right? Because you got
Yeah.
the fire, but
It was an
you also
outside
have-
shooter. It was a crazy fire. I mean, it was a two-story brick, fully involved, outside shooter, sub-zero temperatures.
So the water was freezing on.
The lines were freezing. The firefighters had water, like literally, they looked like icemen, not firefighters. It was crazy.
Yeah.
And there's just like layers and layers of ice from all the water going everywhere.
Yeah.
And I think there was even a few hydrants that were frozen, like in that time frame. It was really, really crazy. Because I remember hearing over the radio for some of them that like, oh, this hydrant's frozen. Like we got to plug another one. And I was just like, well, that's a first.
Yeah.
At least in my time being with the department. I'm sure it's happened before, but.
What other shoots stand out like that, where you've been in such a unique location? Because part of it, I would imagine, because you've explored much of the city, do you find yourself getting bored at some locations? Or
I'm incredibly bored.
What shoots kind of stand out where you're kind of run-of-the-mill sort of day where you think you're going to be shooting in same location, same portrait shot, same fire, but it's just like things pop out and you're like, oh, I'm glad I was here kind of chasing the chaos.
I mean, some of the fire stuff is definitely like, unfortunately, like when Skate Laborious burned up. That was a crazy night whenever the skate church.
Was that the big steeple one?
The big one,
Yeah.
that had the skate park in it. So I was just sitting on my couch. I remember it like it was yesterday. I was sitting on my couch, and I recognize addresses pretty well just from like going around and shooting every day and like being in the city. And the address came up, and I was like, oh, like okay, that's weird. Like that's the skate church. Let me just go by and see what's going on. I like took my time. I didn't live too far from it. I still don't live too far from it. Show up. The fire department was trying to gain entry, and it was only in the rectory, so the smaller building next to the church. I almost left because I was like, oh, they got it under control. It was a super windy, dry night, and all of a sudden, just like out of nowhere, the wind just like took it and shifted the fire and went towards the church. And I remember being in the fire, or I remember being in the church with a few firefighters because we were just like in there talking. And I actually did like a kickflip on one of the boards that was like left in there. Because I was like, oh, like I'm here in the church. Like the church ain't going to burn down. Like nothing's going to happen. And I did a kickflip, and we were all kind of just like standing around. And then we started noticing that the fire had jumped from roof to roof, and all the smoke was starting to fill at the top.
Oh, wow.
Like you could like see it, even though it was dark, like you could start seeing like all the smoke and everything. And I was like, it's like, oh, that's not good. And then Bedwell, one of the guys who owned the church, he was there because he had got the call. And we started basically helping him. Like I put my camera down, and like we were like racing to get stuff like out of the church. Like we were taking like generators, anything we could grab that was like salvageable. And then sure enough, it just like completely like flashed over, and just like the whole roof just like went up at once.
Jeez.
And like I almost went home.
Yeah.
Like I literally like was like, oh, this is gonna be boring. Like I don't need to capture this.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of times where I show up to a fire and it's like they're putting it out. And could I document it? Yes, but it's kind of like the same old stuff. And I don't really, it's not visually stimulating to me, even though like how weird that sounds. But like there is something about the beauty of like fire and like the beauty of what's happening, even though it is like a traumatic thing. And it's just like one of those things to where I feel like obligated to document it because I have the right and I'm in the position to do so.
Yeah.
So I stuck around, and that was like one of the craziest things I've probably ever seen, like in person, like seeing flames going 250, 300 foot like in the air was like, and like being able to feel the heat from so far away was like crazy to me. So that was like one that like really stood out. And then, I mean, it's just like random, like good days, like where you go around with a few friends and you don't think you're going to get into anything, and you find new places, you find new spots, new things are open. Even like the first time that I ran like the metro tunnels, like I remember like, okay, cool, we're going to do it tonight. We're going to do it tonight. Like what happens if we get caught and like all this stuff. And I was just like, at the end of the day, I just started saying, fuck it. I don't care if I get caught. Like I'm going to do and like be the artist and like not be the rebellious type of person, but like I don't want fear holding me back from what I want to do creatively. So whenever I stopped letting that happen, that's kind of like when I started like excelling. Because there was a time where I was scared of like, am I going to get caught? Is this going to ruin my career? Am I going to like end up in jail? And then I was just like, who cares? Like I'm young. I have one life to live. Like this is what I do for a living. I creatively, this is how I speak. So like, I want my voice to be heard. And that's kind of like what I started doing.
So touch on that a little more because you mentioned you didn't want, was there a specific point in time where you made that decision of not deciding to let fear hold you back, or was it kind of a daily
I think it was a mix of,
progression?
I think it was a mix of both. Like I had had like things that I wanted to accomplish as a photographer. Like
Yeah.
I remember getting on the Metropolitan building for the first time, you know, the big green roof downtown. I remember looking out of the press box when I worked for the Cardinals, and like I had the GoPro, and I was like, one day I'm going to climb that thing. Like one day I'm going to get on top of that thing. And I manifested it for like a whole season of like looking out that press window and being like, I'm going to get up there. And then everything that it went into, like getting into it, into the building, onto the rooftop the very first day, like that first time was like such a huge weight and like a huge confidence booster. Like, okay, cool. I set my mind to something and now I've done it. Okay, cool. Like now what's next? And
What
it
else
just
can I
lit,
do?
it lit like such a fire under
Yeah.
me to just like, that's why I went on such a tear. I hit like every rooftop in the city and I had this huge like boost of confidence. I felt like I was literally like untouchable and I just wrote it out. And like, there are some days like where I feel that way still, but I've seen a lot of the city now and I don't really have, I have drive and motivation still. Like I do wake up every day, I grab my camera, I go in my car, and I'm like constantly out location scouting or shooting in some way, shape, or form. But for me to like really feel like I had a good day, it would probably take a lot these days.
Really?
Yeah. It's like a drug. It's like a dopamine hit.
Yeah.
You know, it's like,
Your level of expectation is just kind of, it's increased so much over the years. It's
right. It's
Yeah.
like one of those things. It's like, well, like what do I really want to accomplish now? Like, what do I really want to accomplish? Some days I wake up and I don't know. There are some days where I'm like, cool, like I want to do this, I want to do that, I'm going to do this. And it's just like one of those things. I dance around this idea of being completely motivated or completely unmotivated. There's not like a good in between.
not
But
a
it's like
happy medium.
you know, like you build strength from doing things that you don't want to do.
Right, exactly.
There's some days where I don't want to take photos
Yeah.
and I still do it.
Yeah.
It's like the days like where you don't want to run or the days you don't want to go to the gym.
Yeah.
You're still bettering yourself.
Yep.
But do I love what I do? Absolutely. Do I love it every day? No, nobody loves what they do every day. It's just like unfathomable.
But that's consistency is key to in my mind, to success.
Yeah,
When
and I
it's
think
when you
that's-
keep pushing that everyone else has stopped pushing, that's when you start seeing the leverage and, you become one
Right.
step, 10 steps ahead of everyone else.
Yeah, and I'm not going to say like there was like people that I've shot with before and like they've kind of like stopped doing it. They lost the passion in it or, like life happened.
Yeah.
And I've just always stayed on the straight and narrow. Like once I picked up a camera and like knew I was going to take photos, I'm like, this is what I'm going to do until the day that I die. Like I don't want to be anything else. I don't want to be in a corporate job. I did that with the Cardinals. I don't want to do anything boring. Like I like being my own boss and knowing that like I can wake up and kind of do really whatever I want. I can go travel wherever I want. I have friends all over the world. If I want to go to Tokyo next week, I know people there that I could go have a great time and see things I've never seen before. And like that's all from the consistency of work that I've done.
Right.
So it's a crazy, crazy like mind fuck sometimes to be like, I started from nothing, just like a lot of other people on social media.
Yeah.
And like I'm not successful by any means, but like, am I happy with what I'm doing? Yeah, I'm happy. Like I like what I do. I love it some days I don't. So
Yeah. You mentioned you love traveling.
yeah.
What city have you been to that really kind of sticks out in your mind that you'd love to spend a month there and just shoot?
I would love to go back to China.
Yeah.
Me and my friend Jack and his now wife Jess, I third wheeled very hard on their trip. I did, and I I'm so appreciative that they let me do it because it was probably the greatest trip of my life, one of them, up until I went to Morocco. But Shanghai was like incredible. Just like such a culture shock. Like, I mean, you want to talk like a hard reset of like creativeness? That was like starting from like day one again.
Yeah, yeah.
It was just like, wow. Like,
But with all of the skills that you had accumulated up to that point.
yeah, it was
you know
like
what I mean?
it was like the best of both worlds. Like
Right,
a
right.
completely clean slate, a
Yeah.
blank sheet of paper for me to
That's
just write whatever I wanted to.
Yeah,
And it
that's
was
cool.
just like incredible. The food was cheap, the people were great. I mean, the whole trip, I mean, I think my flight was like $430 round trip. Like that's like
Jeez.
it's like
When was,
unfathomable
back
now.
in 2016?
2019.
Really?
It was
Wow.
it was right, it was pre-COVID. It was March 2019.
Yeah. Damn.
And then and like I've been to Morocco. I went to Morocco with my friend Kara, and that was like incredible. It was like a life-changing trip. Like to go to a completely different country again and have the skill set that I had, and really just like the patience to kind of let things happen instead of I had always felt so rushed. Like whenever like I go on a photography trip, I'm like, I got to get everything. I got to
Yeah,
get this shot.
yeah.
I got to get this shot. I got to make it all work because I only have this much time, you know? In Morocco, it finally wasn't like that. It was like, cool, whatever I see, I'm going to see. Like I didn't really go out of my way to go get this shot or go get the bucket list shot of this trip. I was just like, life happened on that trip and I just documented it that way.
Do you think that that is kind of a new way that you've approached photography since Morocco? That you've almost been more selective with your time, your shots, what you do, as opposed to before, where you're just like, I just want to accumulate as many assets as possible? Or do you find yourself getting more reserved as a photographer and taking your time?
I would say I'm reserved now.
Okay.
And I think it's not from a lack of like me wanting to shoot. I think it's just a lack of like, I'm kind of, I guess like, well, I don't really know how people see me, but I would, from a general census, say that like, I have like more unique shots of St. Louis or like, and there is a little bit of pressure behind that to be like, oh, like Larry's known for doing this. Well, if I stop doing that, or if I don't hold up that end of the bargain, or, you know, there's a little pressure. So I think I'm more reserved now, and actually like, if I want to shoot concerts for the rest of my photography career, then like I'm gonna do it. I think there was a time where I cared, and I was like, no, like I have to do like abandoned buildings and this and that. And now I'm just like, I'm purely doing what makes me happy. I'm posting what I like. I'm shooting what I like. I'm going and doing things with people that I like. It's kind of like all been weeded out now. It's very clear that what I'm doing is what I want to do. And it's for me, it's not for anyone else. It is purely for my enjoyment and my entertainment and my pleasure and my way of documenting it now. So I am selective a little bit more now.
Yeah. And sometimes I think, because I do think about that. And I think that like, if that's just a natural progression that a lot of photographers take.
Yeah, I think it's maturity.
Yeah. Yeah. You kind of have these like seasons, and not that like I'm still new, I think, but I think that there's a natural progression, just like anything. And that's one thing that I've noticed is like one of the more mature seasons that photographers tend to take is a season of reservation, where they just kind of scale back. It's less about accumulation. It's more about just being really selective about what you enjoy shooting, and then just like only doing a few of those.
Yeah, because I mean, burnout's very real.
Yeah.
Like burnout is incredibly real, especially like with everything, how people are like, I need to get this amount of likes and I need to do this. And they put like all these weird boundaries on themselves and like these weird stressors that like they just don't need. Like 9 out of 10 times people don't care what you're posting on Instagram. They're
right.
just going to swipe and like they're going to double tap and like just because they're homies with you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's the people that you don't know that actually have genuine things to say about you and actually care about what you're doing. And like those are the people I care to cater to. Like I don't need my homies in New York to be like, hey man, dope photo. Like,
Yeah.
okay, thanks. I know it's genuine, but like
Yeah.
it's, you know, and it's like it's also very interesting too now that I make money and I do this for a living.
Yeah.
When I first started, I wasn't making money, and when someone was like, hey man, we'll pay you like my very first photo shoot. I didn't even know how to work a DSLR.
Nice.
I borrowed my buddy Zach's 6D, and I shot for Acura. I shot for a car dealership here in St. Louis.
Yeah.
I think I shot 3 cars, 3 Acura TLs that had just came out from a friend who was working there. That's how that was a connection. And I think I made like $50, and I was like,
So pumped.
I was like, yes, I just made
it's
money.
such a great feeling.
I just made money off of something that I do, and
Yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't have to ask anybody for it.
Yep.
I was like, I just made $50 an hour. That's more than my parents make
Yeah.
at their job. Now, if I could just do this 40 times a week,
Right.
but it doesn't
And charge
work.
more over
But it doesn't
time.
work that way, you know. So like, it was a learning curve, but like, it was like an eye-opening thing to be like, wow, I can make money doing this,
Yeah.
and like, I can do it my way. And this was like 2017, so that was like, I'm a high school dropout. Like, I got my GED and everything, but it was always instilled that like, you have to go to college to make a living. You have to like have a career. You don't want to work a 9-to-5 boring job. Like, you want to set yourself up for, you know, for not failing. And like, when I quit the Cardinals, I think there was a little bit of my parents that were like, oh damn, he fucked up. And like, there was a little bit of resentment because like, I lived at home until I was 28. But
We'll cut
but
that
like,
out.
you know, everything happened and it all worked out for a good reason.
Yeah.
And but it was just like one of those things. That was a weird transition in my life, and that's kind of like what led back to like me like naming myself Sekondtry, because I was terrified. I like, okay, cool, like I can make money doing this. Like, I don't know anything about business. I don't know anything about money. I don't know anything about finances. Like, I don't even know how to take good photos yet.
Yeah. Yeah.
But like, I made $50.
Right.
So I'm like, okay, like this could be a thing.
It's proof that it works.
Yeah, it was like a little poke, like, hey man, you might be onto something. Like, give it 100% and you'll get back 100%. And that's like what's like stuck me out and like basically made it to where I am right now.
Yeah.
It was like that one photo shoot, that one car photo shoot, like $50. And I was like, man. And then I started like, I was a nightclub photographer for Wheelhouse.
Yeah.
And I was making 150
I
bucks.
bet that was a hoot.
It was cool at the time.
Yeah.
I would not do it again. But it like everything I've done like worked out for the situation that I needed it. It was the stepping stone.
Yeah.
Like, I had to eat shit, and I still eat shit, still to this day. Like, I don't mind doing repetition and repetitive things that suck, because I know that the end goal is going to be great.
Right.
I think that's one of the things that a lot of people, they just want instant gratification. You still have to take the steps. Like, you still have to, in my opinion, like, there's so many bullets you're going to have to eat. And like, you're still not going to be where you want to be in 5 years. You can't judge your plan off of someone else's plan. I think that's what social media is like really doing right now. I'm 35. To a lot of people, I would not look successful on the internet because of my followers and my age.
Yeah.
I feel very successful because I pay for everything that I own, all my trips, it is all paid with a camera.
Well, consider this too. At 35, you have how many working years left? Number 2, photography is a low impact job.
My neck does hurt. I have a terrible posture when it comes to it.
And then number 3 is you're doing what you're already loving to do. Most people don't discover that until it's already too late.
Yeah, like, I have no kids, I have no pets, like, I have a nice...
What are you trying to say, bro? I got kids.
No, I'm not saying nothing. I'm not saying
and a
nothing.
9-to-5 job.
I have set myself up for opportunities as they come that I'm going to take the risks and take them.
Yeah.
Like going on tour with people I'd never met and being like, cool, I'm just going to fly to LA and get in this RV with 7 random people and go travel around the country for 2 months.
Yeah.
Never done that before, but sweet, sign me up. Like, just things that would have
shared
never...
some stories about that trip.
We'll save that for a different podcast. We'll save that for the late night podcast. Tour was cool. Tour was great.
Late night with beers or whiskey. We'll have alcohol at that one.
I have nothing but love for Noah and Jack, the Emblem 3 guys, and Johnny, Gino, Celia, Sean, Bankston. They are like family. I love them. They were great, and they were fun to be around. It was cool to be like, I'd never been a tour manager before, but I was doing driving, tour managing, media, drum teching, bass tech, and I had like...
And you fired somebody.
And I fired 2 people. But I had to be like tour dad.
Yeah, yeah.
But like I fit the position well because
Right.
I like things to go my way. I'm very much like a control freak. So it just like naturally worked. And I mean, now I have stories and I have knowledge, which is power. So like whenever I get on another tour, I'm ready for those things. I'm only getting better. Like I'm shooting a concert tonight. Like I'm still shooting shows and I'm
Yeah.
still honing my craft. But I don't need a tour to do that. Even though I would love to go on another tour. But
Wink, wink.
but yeah, no, touring was awesome. It was incredible. It was everything that I always wanted it to be and more. Like
Yeah.
to literally know that I was going to wake up in a different city every day with a group of people that I love to work with and being able to work. And
That's the
knowing that I
dream.
was going to get paid every Friday,
Yeah. Yeah.
which was like crazy because like I hadn't had like steady paycheck in a while. So it's like steady income every Friday. I was like, sweet.
So
Yeah,
I'll fire however many people you want me to fire.
I could budget it out. And I think that's the other thing that's very tough about freelancing too, that a lot of people learn the hard way.
Uh-huh.
Is like just because you made 2 or 3 grand doesn't mean you have 2 or 3 grand.
Right. Right.
You gotta lengthen that stuff out.
Yep.
So
Profit margins.
learning all that stuff, I mean, I wouldn't change anything. I'm very, very happy with how things are, and I'm really looking forward to like a 5-10 year plan of like what is going to come of this. But I know I'm still going to want to do it.
You talked about kind of the end goal, working toward the end goal. Now I know you like shooting a lot of different things. I mean, you do fashion, portraiture, street,
Right.
music, travel. What does the end goal look like for you?
So
Knowing that like it's a journey, it's something that we never really reach, and I think that even when you've arrived, your goal will likely have changed or pivoted, right? The goalposts tend to move, but
Right.
like right now, what do you think is like the dream thing to reach toward?
I'll put some milestones out there that I
Yeah.
want to accomplish.
Yeah.
So I would like to accomplish to have like one of my photos on like a major editorial magazine on the cover. Like I want to shoot like a cover for like Vogue or Dior or a campaign for like Louis Vuitton. Like I want to do something super high-end fashion. I do, even though like it may not seem like that way with the style of photography that I do. That is a goal of mine that I want to accomplish. Just to say that like I did it and that I did it my way because I think my style would look really, really cool and unique with it. I would love to go on another tour, like a major like headlining tour with somebody like big, like someone that I almost like a band like I idolize. Like that would be incredible for me to like be like, wow, like I used to look up to you guys and now like I'm working with you guys, like a complete full circle type of thing. And then I would really like to have just like a team of people creatively that I work with all the time to like take these ideas and these visions that I have and actually make them happen. Like I'm very envious and I have nothing but love for my buddies, Jack and Frankie, who were from St. Louis but moved to Denver. And they're doing incredible things. Like they're incredible video guys and they took that leap and it worked out for them. Like they took the risk and there was a massive reward for them.
Yeah.
I would love to stay in St. Louis, but do that same thing. I don't want to have to move away. Like I want to put St. Louis on the map. And I think that's a milestone of mine. Like I want people to look at St. Louis and be like, wow, there's great people there doing great creative things. And we're not just like a lookover city or a flyover city.
Yeah.
That we can compete with Chicago, that we can compete with New York, that we can compete with, Kansas City, LA. Like we are not just some other city.
Right.
And I think that's a big milestone of mine to like somehow make that come to fruition. But
What do you think the city is missing to make that happen? Something like that to
creative community, we don't have that.
yeah.
Everybody, I mean, obviously like we know each other and like we're friends and all that stuff. But it's always like that weird like wall up with people. Like if you walk into a room and there's 100 people there, I don't think this city is the type of place to like where you're going to introduce yourself
You're
to
not going
100
to shake
people.
100 hands. You're going to shake the people you already know.
You're going to go to
2
your
or
little
3.
group,
Yeah.
you're going to conversate, you're going to mingle, and then you're going to bounce.
Yep.
Like I don't know what it is about us that like we all talk about. Like I literally had a conversation with someone today, my buddy Jarrett, about this. That like we as a city talk a big game, but we don't produce a big game. And I wish that wasn't the case. And even like now, like me talking about it, like, am I doing everything I can to reach out to everybody that follows me or people that I want to create with?
Yeah.
No. But it's also one of those things that when I see people and I respect people's work, I let them know. Like, I'm not shy about that. Like, if I like someone's work and I like what they're doing, I tell them.
Yeah.
So I think that's one of the things that we don't need to be competition towards each other. We need to actually be a community with each other.
Yeah.
And I think that's like one of the big things that is severely lacking in St. Louis.
Yeah, totally agree.
So like all the sports teams, they all boost each other up
Right.
and like, you know, and it works. And I just wish that people creatively in our community of St. Louis wouldn't be so, I don't know, timid or scared or just whatever the term is that you want to call it of why people don't do it. But I think if we just did that a little bit more, we'd see a big change. Like we could get big ads here. We could get big companies here. We could do Nike commercials here. We could do Apple commercials. We could do Adidas stuff like, but we have to show that we're actually,
together.
that we're all on the same page.
Right. Yeah.
If they're like, oh man, like we got to fly in people from LA to do this. No one here gets along.
It's funny because
Not a good look.
I feel like the outside perception of Midwestern manners, the Midwestern mentality is like, oh, we're friendly. But then like as Midwesterners, I feel
Not
like
when it
we
comes to
don't-
my pocketbook and your
Yeah,
pocketbook.
exactly. Yeah.
And that's the weird thing too. Like, there's a lot of creative people that kind of just St. Louis is very cliquey. I mean, you know that.
Yeah.
It's not like what I'm saying is like, oh no, St. Louis is cliquey.
Yeah, no, we've chatted
Shocker.
about that. Yeah.
It's like I'm not afraid to say that like, if you're not in the right circle, you're not going to get the right amount of money. That's just how it is. And like, maybe that's why I'm not getting the right amount of money. But like, I'm just not going to play the game. I'm going to play the game that I know how to play, which is like put my head down, work hard, be consistent, be on time, just like general business things. And I'm not a very networky, like go out of my way person because working at the nightclubs burned me out from people. So like I tend to like, if I don't get invited, I typically don't show up.
Right.
So that's my own flaw.
Gotcha.
But no, I think if we have more community here, we'd be doing naturally better as like a creative community.
Yeah.
For goes, huh?
For girls. No, and like to be honest, that's part of I think the impetus of having a platform like this is to help break the barriers of like and break the barriers and showcase the amount of creatives that we have in St. Louis.
Yeah, we have a
And,
lot
like,
of talent here.
And to showcase it like learning everybody's backstory, like everybody's pretty much the same. Like there's a lot of people who have a lot of things in common.
It's very odd because like every time, like I know you're obviously doing more podcasts and stuff than I am, but like when I hear about something, I'm like, oh, like I was a musician or
Yep.
I used to skateboard or I played baseball and then I had a friend who had a camera. It's like always kind of like that kind of like weird story. It's never like my dad was a photographer as a child and I've had a camera in my hand since I was 5.
Right.
Very, very odd and very rare is that the case.
Yep.
Because typically if that person's talking to you, then they're in the wrong room or you're in the right room because
Or they're like in New York.
right. Like it's just like good people's, it's one of those things like good people tend to stick around good people.
Yeah.
So I think that's why all the money stays in the same rooms.
Yeah.
And it's not like about money, but I think there's opportunity though. Like just because someone's your neighbor, you're going to get the job.
Yeah.
Even though if that person's not qualified properly, it's just because, oh, well, I already know you.
Yeah. Because he lends you butter on the weekends. Yeah.
So it's just like, I think that's just one of the things. We don't go for qualified people. We go for the people we know. And that's just business in general.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said about that, especially with our market, that there's a lot of untapped potential and talent here.
Absolutely.
And they're not going to be seen because they're not so-and-so's neighbor. And that's just how sad it is.
Yeah.
So it's just like musicians. There's 1,000 people out there that are good at drums or guitar, but there's not 1,000 touring bands.
Right.
So it's kind of like damned if you do, damned if you don't. But just get better and you'll get in a better room.
Yeah, for sure.
So
Before we break, I want to know your thoughts around your dream, if you were to shoot any band in any city,
Ooh.
who would it be and where would you shoot it at?
Ooh. God, that's a tough one. I have a lot of favorite bands. God, I would, as dumb as it sounds, as dumb as it's gonna sound to people,
It's going to sound dumb.
probably Blink 182.
I was going to say Sum 41 or Blink 182.
I think just because like of my childhood. I
Yeah.
mean, I idolized Travis Barker, just like who didn't, you
Yeah.
know? Yeah, I think it was like if Blink 182, if I got a call from someone from Blink 182 tomorrow and they're like, "Hey Larry, we're a big fan of your work,"
Yeah.
I would probably die.
Yeah.
I would probably be like, "Well, I appreciate the phone call, but I'm dead now." So
You're
like,
not going to make it to the gig.
yeah, you're a little too late. I've already died, but thank you though.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it would just be like it's just a whole different level of like things I'd probably never ever experience of just like fame and access and just like production value, personality. I mean, those dudes have seen some shit, and it would just be incredible.
Where would it be?
It probably
Just any city that you've dreamt of going to.
probably somewhere in Europe, like something like wild,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Madrid or something like that, like
Yeah.
a place I've never been to as well, like
Yeah.
just like something completely culture shock, insane, and just be like, well, here I am, Blink 182 in Madrid,
In
no
Madrid.
big deal.
That'd be sick.
Like that would be like, I'd be like, okay, cool, I peaked.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like I peaked for like 10 other people around me that I peaked. You know, it's like, but those things are actually not that, like, when you really, really think about it, you can speak things into existence. And I'm a big, big person and a very, very, like, strong believer of manifestation. So, I mean, it could happen.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying, like, nothing's impossible.
Right.
Especially with social media and networking and, like, who knows? One day we could be on a podcast again and you'd be like, man, so how was tour of Blink
I was
182?
tour with Blink 182.
So, I mean, you know, there's like a
You'd be
whole,
like, yeah,
there's,
the water in Spain sucks.
there's a whole list of bands, you know, like Under Oath would be another good one.
Yeah.
You know, like bands that I grew up listening to and that like kind of molded me into what I am. Like I've become friends with bands now that I grew up listening to and like I take photographs for them now, like when they come through town. And that's like a mind fuck.
Yeah.
To be like, God, like I used to listen to your albums. You know, like a band, for instance, like He Is Legend. They just came in town, and they did their 20th year anniversary for one of their albums. And it's crazy because I remember listening to that album for the first time like 20 years ago, and now full circle, I'm taking photos of them,
That's awesome.
and like I get to like know the guys. So it's just like a crazy like full circle thing that like you just never know. So Blink 182 is not off the table.
All right. You heard it here first. You heard it here first. Blink 182.
Blink 182. It would be. I know they're generic and like they are iconic though, and it
Yeah.
would be a fun experience.
Yeah.
And I could do that like when I'm 45.
There you go.
Like
10 years.
they'll be young.
That's a reasonable goal.
They're still older than me, so like I'll still be the young guy.
There you go.
But yeah. So
Cool. Well, appreciate your time.
well, thanks,
And
buddy.
yeah, I mean, even though we've known each other for a bit, I learned a few more things.
We talked about things that we
Yeah.
don't normally talk about.
Yeah,
so
no, it was great, man.
You have a pass.
Thanks for sharing.
You got a pass in my podcast.
Awesome. Well, I appreciate you, man.
Of
Thanks
course,
for your
man.
time.
Thanks for Goza.
Thanks for Gogs.
Later.
All right.